Here's Paul Catalina and Craig Smoak.
David Smoak rejoins us tomorrow, but you heard the voice in the highlight, unmistakably Chuck Cooperstein, voice of the Mavericks. That highlight, not from this weekend, it was just a really good highlight, and I wanted to play Coop's voice because it's so awesome. Coop joins us now, and Chuck, this weekend, obviously, every which way but loose did not go the Mavericks' way. Your thoughts on how it kind of played out from Friday to Sunday, and where the Mavs sit as they head into the offseason, going forward?
Well, they had a great opportunity on Friday. I mean, they had a 9-point lead in the second quarter. They had a 7-point lead in the third quarter. They had the lead early in the fourth quarter. But their shooting just left them when it was needed most. And obviously, the fact that, and you saw it in Game 7, that Rick Carlisle had absolutely no faith in his bench at all, and threw Luka out there for 45 minutes, the most minutes he's ever played in an NBA game. And, one might say, well, it's Game 7, he should be playing that many minutes. But really, I mean, all year long, again, he's not played that many minutes, and they've tried to and have had success, giving him the break at the start of the second quarter, bring him back midway through the quarter and what have you. Okay, that break's going to be a little bit shorter in the playoffs, but it was disappointing. I mean, let's face it, they had a chance to win the series. It was in their hands. But ultimately, this series was decided in Game 3. Mm-hmm. This series was decided when the Mavericks had a 30-11 lead, 4.5 minutes to play. And, of course, at that point, Rick took Luka out after they got the big lead, thought he could buy some time, and it wound up blowing up in their face. And I think, it's really the bigger picture is the Mavericks need more help for Luka. But the smaller picture is that the bench just came up so small, really, after Game 2. Brunson had a good Game 1. Richardson had a good Game 2. But after and Powell, I guess, had a very good Game 5, but on top of that was it. Those are the three performances, and the fact that you had one in each game as opposed to it all happening together just speaks volumes about why the Mavericks are not in Salt Lake City today, getting ready to play Game 1 tomorrow night.
Chuck, did it feel like Carlisle was just trying to find an answer yesterday? I know there were a lot of guys, as you mentioned, they were playing more minutes than they were, normally playing. It felt like they were just kind of trying to throw something at the wall and let it stick, or did you see it differently?
Well, I mean, playing Trey Burke in place of Richardson was shocking to me, given that he had not played at all in the series, but Richardson had just not been a factor. So I guess he was looking for something or anything. But Trey Burke is not unlike Tim Hardaway in that if he's not making shots, it's very difficult to keep him on the floor. And unfortunately, he didn't make either of his shots. He took two really bad ones in the third quarter in the midst of that 24-4 run that ended the quarter and gave the Clippers the 15-point lead. But, he stayed with the zone, and people will rip him for staying with the zone. I really don't have that much of a problem with it because clearly the Mavericks could not guard in a straight man-to-man. The Clippers were having a conga line to the basket. They went to the zone. They took that away. And for 2.5 games, really the Clippers could not do anything with it. And then in Game 7, they did do something with it. Now, should you, if you're Rick Carlisle, say, oh, God, they're killing us here. Maybe we should try a little man-to-man at some point. But, at that point, once the Clippers started making shots, they were pretty well cooked defensively. It just didn't have an answer, and especially didn't have an answer for Leonard.
Going forward with Kristaps Porzingis, do they need to find someone that can allow, like, not necessarily, force him to do something he's not, capable or wanting to do? They need to find somebody that can maybe let him move out to a different position so he can be more of the Kristaps Porzingis that he feels comfortable with?
Well, the thing is, he feels comfortable posting up, and the numbers just don't support him posting up. It's one thing if you've got, guys like Embiid and Nikola Jokic, and they're really big guys with the low centers of gravity. And when Porzingis, because he's got a higher center of gravity, tries to post up, I mean, he's easily moved. And it doesn't matter whether it's a big guy that's playing against him or if it's a 6'4" guy that's just got an arm bar in the middle of his back. I must say, to me, that was the most stunning development of the series. The fact that he really became very much an afterthought, although actually yesterday he really wasn't half bad. I mean, he was 16 and 11, didn't make his 3-point shots though. And again, as a spacer, that's what the Mavericks wanted him to do because he is a good shooter. But, given what we saw in the bubble last year, when he averaged 30 in the 8 games and he averaged 24 against the Clippers in the 3 games before he got hurt, the fact that he could not produce, could not be any kind of factor on a consistent basis as an option for Doncic is, to me, the most remarkable aspect of this series, that it just didn't go down that way.
And Coop, he's under contract, so what, in theory, can they really do in terms of Kristaps? Is it a matter of just trying to find a way to make it work better? Is it a matter of trying to find somewhere else for him to go? I mean, how do you think they view this no-show and kind of, this disappointing postseason? How do they view that moving forward with this Kristaps-Luka pairing?
Well, if they weren't shopping him at the deadline, as had been reported, they probably are shopping him now and just getting a much better sense of, okay, if we do trade him, what can we get for him? And maybe it's just the incredibly stubborn nature of me, but I still think there's something there. But, was he healthy? And if he was healthy, then it really does become a problem. Was he hurt and they just didn't say anything just because it's the playoffs? We knew Cleveland was hurt for sure, and Redick obviously, but was he still feeling the after effects of missing the 10 games with the sore knee? I don't know. But it is the 800-pound gorilla on their shoulder. It is the question that must be answered one way or another before the beginning of next season.
Chuck, it looks like Luka Doncic is going to sign a contract extension. I don't think that comes as a huge surprise, but on your end, are you hearing that same thing? I guess he mentioned in media interviews today. Your thoughts on Luka and a new contract extension in the works?
Well, yeah, I mean, he's going to get a max extension because he's going to be an All-NBA player for the second consecutive year, and he'll be the first to ever have a $200 million contract, coming off of his rookie contract. And, it comes as absolutely no surprise. Mm-hmm. I'm sure ultimately it will be, while they'll say it's a 5-year deal, it'll really be a 4-year deal because there'll be a player option on the 5th year. There's no doubt that he was going to sign this, and it's going to go into effect starting with the 2022-2023 season. But at that point, guys, the clock is ticking.
Yeah.
The clock is ticking on the team to be able to put the necessary pieces around him so that he doesn't become Damian Lillard. I mean, Damian Lillard is fantastic. We saw what he did for Portland. I mean, it was absolutely electric to watch. But the Blazers are home again for the 4th time in the last 5 years. Now, the other year they got to the conference finals, and that was notable. But this guy wins. That's all he's ever done in his life is win. And the fact now that he has been eliminated in the first 2 years of his playoff competition in not getting out of the first round, is going to drive him absolutely insane. And the Mavericks have to move heaven and earth, frankly, to make sure they have the correct pieces around him so that what happened this year, certainly what happened last year, but especially this year when you had a 2-0 and 3-2 lead in the series and couldn't win the series, that it never happens again as long as Luka is here and in his prime.
How much different do you expect the roster to look next year?
I think there will be, there's 17 players on the roster. Mm-hmm. They don't have a draft choice right now and probably won't have one. I think there will be changes because there's no way the roster is good enough. But is it going to be a total overhaul? Just throw everybody out except for Doncic and Dorian Finney-Smith? I don't think so. I don't think we're doing that. But again, I have the only way that to me that there is a marked difference in this team next year is if Porzingis is traded, and if Tim Hardaway does not resign. Although I definitely think the Mavericks want him back, and they should want him back, given how he played for him this year.
Chuck Cooperstein, voice of the Mavericks, here with us. Coop, thank you so much for joining us every time that you have this year, and I'm sure that we'll have you back on. I'm very curious when name, image, and likeness hits to get really hits and starts going to get your opinions on that. Because
it is going to be the wild, wild west if it isn't already. I mean, even with the portal being what it is, recruiting rules being what they are, you throw that into the mix, man. It is a brave new world that we're all going to be looking at.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we talk about it all the time. But Chuck, thanks a lot. Enjoy whatever off season that you do take, and before you get back to it.
Thanks for having me, guys. Take care.
Chuck Cooperstein, voice of the Mavericks, here with us, and great. He's great on college sports, man. He
is.
Yeah,
he's big Florida Gator, which is surprising that you'd even have him on the show as a result of that.
There's some people that look. Tom Petty's from Gainesville, Emmitt Smith, Chuck Cooperstein.
Yeah,
they're outside. They've moved outside the bubble for me.
I'm glad that he said it, and I felt the same way. I think everybody watching the Mavericks felt the same way. The 800-pound gorilla, as he called it, on the Mavericks this offseason is what happens with Kristaps Porzingis. I know if my sister had a vote, he'd be thrust into the realms of outer space right now. She hates him. She hates him with a passion because she watches him and he just doesn't look like he cares. And he's like, that's the thing is as Chuck's pointing out, is he hurt? Like, that's the thing is nobody even knows why he looked as bad as he did. And yesterday wasn't his worst day, but he played so poorly that everybody watching at home had to go either he doesn't care, either way what happens here, and he just wants to go home, or he's hurt, or there's some sort of infight in the something's off. So what is it? And I'm glad to know that everybody was or most people were kind of thinking the same thing, and Chuck himself is thinking the same thing of what is the deal? Is he healthy or not? Does he want to be here or not? But God, that's your number two guy, and he was for the most part an absolute non-factor for you and hurt you in several ways. So I'm very intrigued by what that looks like. The Kristaps-Luka pairing was supposed to be the pairing that carried them for the next several years, and so far it's basically just been some first-round exits. So Luka's not going anywhere. I had forgotten about that, the being named the All-NBA, how that bumped up. His contract's ready now. So great to know that he's going to be signing an extension and won't be going anywhere for the next 4 or 5 years. So you can go ahead and buy that Doncic jersey and feel good about, being able to wear that for a while and hopefully for forever. But as he pointed out, you can't feel like he's Dirk Nowitzki just yet because you can't rule out the possibility that he could get incredibly frustrated with, first-round exit after first-round exit. I mean, ultimately, the guy plays for championships. That's what he did in Europe. That's what he's going to want to do in America. And if the Mavericks can't do that for him, then he's going to look for somewhere else to go and do that. But thankfully, not anytime soon. But they better get a roster around him because if I have to watch another year of they missed the second round again, but he's only 24 now. Well, okay. Well, then he's only 25.
He's only 26.
And he's only 26. And I would rather
Lillard.
him. Yeah, exactly.
Great comparison.
That was an incredible comparison. It's spot on. You don't want him to become Damian Lillard and waste all of his prime years. So how about get him in the mix now, and he's competing for titles at 25 and 26. And then what happens in his 30s are extra sauce, because he's as good as he's going to be athletically right now. And he's not going to get any younger. He's still plenty young, but again, you skip that rock a couple years down the road and he's only 26 now and he's never been out of well, eventually that's going to get old. And I'm glad they're locking him down. No surprise, nobody could match it because of the numbers involved. So that played in the Mavericks' favor. But how long will it play in their favor if this keeps up? Not very long. So big offseason in store for the Mavericks.
Yeah, and Kristaps Porzingis to me is he is the big budget movie with a great trailer that when you go to see, you're now I hate this.
Yeah, pretty much.
I don't maybe you don't want to see anything else that's made about that until they retool. He's Batman forever.
Yeah,
that's what he is. Until you give me a new Batman, a new director, and a new idea with what this is, I don't really care with your ideas about it. That's where Kristaps is that we were in Atlanta at the Super Bowl, and I heard, were you there when he said it? I heard Jeff Wade, Skin Wade, just bellow out about they had made that. That's how I found out about it. He was just jumping up and down about the Mavs getting Kristaps Porzingis. And he is not If that was even just one person and just him, he has not justified that reaction from one person yet.
No, he hasn't.
And Tim Hardaway Jr., you may have to call that trade now. Brad Underwood made the point the other day we had him on that's more the Tim Hardaway Jr. trade than a Kristaps trade.
Well, that's what a lot of people have been calling him that here for. I've seen that for a while now because it's true. He's been a non-factor for the most part. I mean, a non-factor in comparison to what your expectations were, and the expectations were built up pretty high about what he was going to be able to do and the type of talent that he was and how he would work with Luka and their back history and all that stuff. But, they got to re-sign Tim Hardaway Jr. He's already making over 17, so I'm interested to know what he would be making. Let's see, Boban's a free agent. I mean, that won't be high money. He makes less than $4 million a year. I would imagine, chemistry-wise, he could be brought back. Man, they played him so many minutes. I mean, I think I said it either off air or on air earlier. There's the most minutes he's played in his entire NBA career was yesterday. Or second most. It was one of those numbers. Regardless, he was out there way more than he should have been because, again, they were just trying to find something that was working. But I know Boban's big for team chemistry. He is an unrestricted free agent, though. Boban and Tim Hardaway Jr. And, we'll see kind of how they retool this thing. But, a very disappointing first-round exit. Not surprising that they lost to the Clippers, but just the fact that they were up 2-0 and then they were up 3-2. The fact they were up big in Game 3, I mean, he said it. That was the game where it all went sideways. As they were up huge in the first half. They blew that lead. Clippers won, and the whole series flipped as a result of that. You should have been up 3-0, no questions. And, then you've got 4 games to win 1, and I'd feel pretty good about your chances to do that. But they did not get it done in Game 3. And now they didn't get it done in Game 7, and they're going home for the rest of the offseason. And it's on their shoulders. So Mark Cuban – get to work on this roster. Donnie Nelson and company, get to work on this roster. Do as much as you can do because, again, you've got a superstar. The one thing you do know about the Mavericks is they have one of the top 5, and some might even argue higher, top 5 current players in the NBA. Bottom, even haters would have to say he's still top 10. That's how good he is. So make it work. Don't waste this time with Luka.
Yeah, absolutely not.